My girlfriend left her notes app, open with a file called Backup Plan. I read it. It listed how she'd quit working, push for a baby, then claim full support after leaving me. I stayed quiet and forwarded everything to my lawyer. When she realized her private notes were now evidence in court, I, 30 male, had been with Brittany, 28, for 2 years when I found the document that ended everything. We lived together in my downtown condo. She worked in marketing, or at least she did until 3 months ago when she claimed burnout and quit without warning. I covered the rent, utilities, groceries, everything. She said she needed space to heal. Last Tuesday night, she asked to borrow my tablet because her iPad was charging upstairs. I handed it over. She used it for maybe 10 minutes before leaving it on the kitchen counter and heading to bed early. When I picked it up to plug it in, the screen was still on. Her notes app was open. At the top of the list sat a file titled Backup Plan. I almost scrolled past it. Almost. But something about the clinical precision of that title stopped me cold. I tapped it open. The first line read, Phase 1, Establish Financial Dependency. My stomach dropped. I kept reading. By the third paragraph, I understood exactly what I was looking at. A blueprint, a step-by-step strategy to trap me, drain me, and walk away with everything she could extract through family court. I took screenshots of every page. Then I forwarded them to my lawyer. Brittany and I met at a mutual friend's wedding. She was sharp, funny, confident. She had a solid job at a mid-size agency, made decent money, split everything 50-50 in the early months. We moved in together after a year. It felt natural. She talked about partnership, building something together, futures that aligned. The first shift came last fall. She started complaining about her boss, the hours, the clients. Every dinner turned into a debrief about workplace stress. I listened, I supported her. When she floated the idea of taking a sabbatical, I told her we could make it work short-term if she needed a mental health break. In November, she quit. No 2 weeks notice. Just walked in one morning, handed over her laptop and left. She framed it as self-care. I can't keep sacrificing my well-being for a paycheck, she said. I respected that. I told her to take the time she needed. We would adjust, except she never looked for another job. December passed, then January. February arrived and she was still sleeping until noon, scrolling Instagram, talking vaguely about finding her purpose. When I gently suggested maybe updating her resume or exploring freelance gigs, she accused me of not supporting her healing journey. I backed off. By March, the dynamic had fully flipped. I paid for everything: rent, car insurance, her phone bill, dinners out, groceries, subscriptions. She contributed nothing. When I mentioned maybe splitting costs again, when she felt better, she looked at me like I had insulted her. "You make 3 times what I used to make," she said. "This shouldn't even be a burden for you." I let it slide because I loved her, because I wanted to believe this was temporary, because every time I questioned it, she reframed my concern as lack of empathy. Then she started talking about timelines, about babies, about how we should start trying soon because she was almost 30 and her window was closing. I was not ready. I told her that directly. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "We'll see." That phrase stuck with me. "We'll see." Like my opinion was negotiable. Like this was already decided and I just did not know it yet. When I opened that notes file, the first thing that hit me was the formatting. It was not a journal entry. It was not emotional venting. It was a business plan, structured, deliberate, divided into phases with bullet points and timelines. Phase 1, establish financial dependency, already complete according to her notes. She had successfully positioned herself as fully reliant on my income. Check. Phase 2, eliminate birth control without discussion, scheduled for next month. She wrote, "Stop pills quietly, he will not notice. If pregnancy happens earlier than planned, claim surprise but embrace it fully." My hands were shaking as I scrolled. Phase 3, push for immediate commitment. The note read, "Once pregnant, pressure engagement, emotional leverage, family expectations, baby needs stable home, do not want to be an unwed mother, he will not say no." Phase 4, maintain pregnancy control, followed by a line that made my blood run cold. Do not let him attend early appointments alone. Control narrative with OB. If he questions paternity later, position as insulting and abusive. Phase 5. Post-birth strategy. This section was the longest. Detailed calculations about child support percentages based on my salary. Notes about how to maximize spousal support by stretching the relationship timeline. A reminder to document any argument as potential evidence of emotional abuse. A line that read, "Family court favors mothers. Use that." The final section was titled Exit Timeline. She estimated 18 months post-birth. Planned to file when the child was old enough that custody would default heavily in her favor, but young enough that support payments would stretch for nearly 2 decades. At the bottom, in a separate note, she had written, "He is stable, conflict avoidant, and financially secure. He will not fight hard. He will pay to make it go away." She had profiled me, calculated my weaknesses, built a strategy around my personality. I read the entire document 3 times. Then I opened my phone, took clear screenshots of every section, and texted my lawyer. "Need to see you first thing tomorrow. Urgent." My attorney, Karen, has handled my estate planning and a few contract reviews over the years. She is sharp, no nonsense, and does not waste time on hypotheticals. When I walked into her office Wednesday morning and handed her my phone, she read in silence for 4 minutes straight. Then she looked up and said, "This is premeditated fraud." I asked her what I should do. She pulled out a legal pad and started writing. First, she told me to forward her every screenshot immediately. She would file them as evidence and timestamp them through her office system. If Brittany tried to claim I fabricated anything later, the metadata and law office records would prove otherwise. Second, she told me to stop having unprotected sex immediately. If I had been, which I had not in recent weeks because Brittany kept claiming she was too tired, I needed to be vigilant going forward. If a pregnancy occurred now, this document would establish premeditation and bad faith. Third, she told me to document everything, every conversation, every financial transaction. If Brittany made any statements about wanting a baby, getting engaged, or her expectations about my financial support, I needed to write it down with dates and times. Fourth, she would draft a formal notice to Brittany that I was terminating any implied financial support arrangement and that she needed to resume contributing to household costs or find alternative housing. If she refused, that refusal would be documented. Fifth, and this was the part that made it real, Karen told me she was going to file a preemptive legal action, not a lawsuit, a protective filing. It would put on record in a court system that I had discovered evidence of planned fraud and was taking steps to protect my assets and parental rights in the event Brittany proceeded with any part of her documented strategy. She explained that if Brittany ever did try to file for child support or claim any form of domestic partnership financial support, this filing would be Exhibit A, her own words, her own plan, documented and time-stamped before any pregnancy or cohabitation claim could be made. Karen asked me if I was sure I wanted to do this. It would end the relationship. Brittany would know the moment she was served. I told her I was sure. She said she would have everything ready to file by end of week. Update 1. On Friday afternoon, a process server delivered the legal notification to our condo. I was at work. Brittany was home. She called me 14 times in the span of 30 minutes. I did not answer. I let her spiral. When I finally got home that evening, she was sitting on the couch with the papers spread across the coffee table. Her face was red. She had been crying, but her expression was not sadness. It was rage. "What the hell is this?" she said, holding up the court filing. I set my keys down calmly. "It is exactly what it says. A protective legal filing. You went through my private notes." Her voice was shaking. "You violated my privacy. You had no right." I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshots. "You left your notes app open on my tablet. I saw a file called Backup Plan. I read it. That is not a violation. That is you being careless. Those were private thoughts. You are twisting them." I read aloud from the screenshot. Phase 2. Eliminate birth control without discussion. Stop pills quietly. He will not notice. I looked up at her. "Which part am I twisting?" She opened her mouth. Closed it, tried again. That was not serious. I was just venting. I was upset. You divided it into phases, I said. You included timelines. You calculated child support percentages. That is not venting. That is planning. She stood up, pacing. You are making me sound like some kind of criminal. I love you. I wanted a future with you. You wanted my paycheck, I said. You wanted a baby as leverage. You wanted to stop working permanently and position yourself for maximum extraction when you left. That is not love. That is strategy. Her face crumpled. She tried to reach for my hand. I stepped back. I am not going to fight with you, I said. I am not going to argue about what your notes meant. A family court judge is going to read them. Every word. You documented your intent. You documented premeditation. You documented fraud. That is in the system now. You cannot do this. Her voice broke. You are destroying everything. You already did that, I said. I am just making sure you cannot destroy me in the process. Update 2. Over the weekend, Brittany tried everything. She cried. She apologized. She claimed the notes were a dark joke she wrote when she was angry after a fight we had months ago. She swore she never intended to follow through. She begged me to withdraw the filing. I told her no. Sunday night, she packed a bag and went to stay with a friend. She texted me Monday morning, I need time to think. I replied, take all the time you need. By Tuesday, her family was involved. Her mother called me, furious, accusing me of humiliating her daughter and blowing a misunderstanding out of proportion. I told her I would be happy to forward her the same screenshots my lawyer had. She hung up. Wednesday, Brittany's older sister showed up at my office. She was calmer than her mother, but her message was the same. You are ruining her life over a stupid note. I asked her if she had read it. She admitted she had not seen the actual document, only heard Brittany's version. I pulled up the screenshots on my computer and turned the monitor toward her. I let her read. She got quieter with every paragraph. When she finished, she looked at me and said, I did not know. I said, now you do. She left without saying anything else. Thursday, Brittany tried a different approach. She sent me a long email. She admitted the notes were real. She admitted she had been thinking about those things. But she framed it as desperation, not malice. She said she felt trapped in a relationship where I held all the financial power and she was spiraling because she did not see a way out that did not leave her broken alone. She claimed the baby plan was not about trapping me. It was about securing stability for herself because she was terrified of being abandoned with nothing. She ended the email with, I know I was wrong, but you are making this so much worse than it has to be. We can fix this if you just let it go. I forwarded the email to Karen. She replied in 2 sentences. This is an admission. Save it. Update 3. By the following Monday, word had spread. Mutual friends started reaching out. Some wanted to know my side. Others had already decided I was the villain and sent messages accusing me of weaponizing the legal system against a woman who just needed help. I did not defend myself to anyone except the people who mattered. I sent the screenshots to exactly 3 people. My parents, my brother, and my best friend from college. All of them had met Brittany. All of them had liked her. I wanted them to see what I had seen. My mother called me in tears, not because she felt bad for Brittany, because she felt bad that I had been dating someone capable of that level of calculation. My brother was blunt. Get her out of your house immediately. Karen had already advised the same. She sent a formal 30-day notice to vacate. Brittany was legally a tenant. I could not just change the locks, but I could start the eviction clock. Brittany did not wait 30 days. She moved out within a week. On her last day in the condo, she left a handwritten note on the kitchen counter. It said, I hope you are happy. You turned a relationship into a legal case. You will regret this. I took a photo of the note and sent it to Karen. She replied, document everything. 3 months later, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Brittany had moved back in with her parents. She was not working. She had tried to get her old marketing job back, but the agency had already filled her position. She applied to a few other places, but without a solid explanation for the employment gap and without references from her last role, she was not getting callbacks. Her social media, which used to be full of curated lifestyle shots and motivational quotes, went quiet. The few posts that did appear were vague and bitter. Quotes about betrayal, memes about narcissists, Thinly veiled subtweets about men who use the system to hurt women. A former co-worker of hers reached out to me privately. She said Brittany had been telling people I had fabricated the notes, that I had created fake screenshots to frame her. But when pressed, Brittany could not explain how I would have access to her notes app or why I would go through the effort. The story did not hold up. People who knew both of us started asking questions. A few of her closer friends distanced themselves when they realized the timeline and details did not match her version. Her credibility collapsed. I did not gloat. I did not post about it. I did not engage. I just moved forward. Karen kept the legal filing active. She told me it would remain on record indefinitely. If Brittany ever tried to make any claim against me, financial or otherwise, that document would surface immediately. It was a permanent shield. The condo felt different without her. Quieter, cleaner, mine again. I changed the locks anyway, even though she had returned her keys. I updated my passwords. I reviewed my bank accounts and made sure nothing was linked to her name. I locked down everything. Final closure. 6 months after I found that note, I was sitting in a coffee shop with my brother. He asked me if I ever regretted how I handled it. If I thought maybe I should have just confronted her, broken up quietly and moved on without the legal escalation. I told him no. If I had confronted her without proof, she would have denied it. She would have cried. She would have called it a misunderstanding. She might have convinced me to give her another chance. And then 6 months later, a year later, I might have found myself exactly where she had planned to put me. The legal filing was not about revenge. It was about protection. It was about making sure that if she ever tried to execute any part of that plan, there would be a paper trail proving I knew, proving I acted, proving she had documented intent. I did not ruin her life. She built a plan to ruin mine, wrote it down, and left it open on a device she borrowed. Some people called me cold. Some said I overreacted. But none of them had read what I read. None of them had seen their entire future mapped out as a financial extraction strategy by someone who claimed to love them. I learned something from Brittany. I learned that trust is not the same as blindness. I learned that love does not mean ignoring red flags or giving someone endless chances to prove they are not who their actions say they are. I also learned that silence is not weakness. I did not yell. I did not rage. I did not post about it online or trash her to mutual friends. I just took screenshots, called my lawyer, and let the system do exactly what it was designed to do. Her backup plan became my primary defense. A year later, I am still in the same condo. I am dating someone new. She has her own career, her own income, her own goals. We split everything. We talk about futures, but we build them together, not in secret strategy documents. I still have the screenshots saved in 3 separate places. I will probably keep them forever. Not because I need them anymore, but because they are a reminder. Some rings start wars, some notes end them before they begin. Brittany wanted a baby, a payout, and an exit plan. She got a court filing, a ruined reputation, and a move back to her parents' house. I wanted a partner. I got a case study in premeditated fraud. In the end, we both got exactly what we earned.